Also, touching on Savathun, do you think? I mean, I would assume it's kind of Bungie have kind of set up, but do you think she'll return, and in what capacity? And do you think she'll be somewhat of an ally because she is, I guess, opposed to the Witness, so the kind of enemy of your enemy is your friend? Do you think she'll be some kind of unlikely ally because she is? I mean, she did say before Witch Queen, like, I'm not your enemy, I'm trying to help you, and then she did apparently hide the veil to try and go again to prevent the first collapse. So, obviously she's a guardian, she's a ghost. The ghost disappeared. So, do you think they're kind of setting that up for her to return as some kind of ally?
If not in final shape, then as some greater facet of the story of Destiny going forward. I have to imagine that, especially when you look at the story of Xivu, there's got to be something involving Savathun.
Yeah.
If the final shape involves Xivu being convinced that she needs to not be on the side of the Witness, I have to imagine that we're going to bring back Savathun, who, remember, has died after freshly learning that the Witness deceived her and deceived her entire species.
Yeah.
So it's this thing of like, you have a very personal reason to go out there and try and liberate your sister, so to speak, from this huge misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And, there's a great dynamic there, but it's also just one of those things of Savathun is an ace in the hole for Bungie to deploy whenever they feel like the story needs it. And I'm sure that if they're looking at Destiny beyond Final Shape, which inevitably they will have written a bunch of stuff already several years ahead of things, you're probably looking at something where there are plans for Savathun. A ghost did not escape for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, I think that something is going to happen. We just don't know when or where.
So as far as the enemies of Destiny, we only have the Witness, Xivu, and some of the worms. Are there any others? That's kind of it, right? And I guess any other disciples that could be there. But the main enemies that have been there the whole time would be the Witness, Xivu, and a couple of the worms, who I think are probably still around.
Yeah, and
Anything
it really
else?
depends on the perspective of the worm gods too, because, they were subjugated by Rulk, and Rulk's death now, and the destruction of certain facilities in Savathun's throne world. There's a bunch of stuff going on there where their allegiance is maybe questionable. It kind of really depends. I think the other really big ones to look at are the Fanatic, Fikrul, who is the minor of the two. He is the only other person with potential control over the Scorn, which of course is one of the arms of the Witness's forces now. It's questionable whether he would be able to actually pull them apart from anything as powerful as the Witness, but, it's not impossible that we could see something like that in the storyline. And of course, the really big one, Aramis. Aramis has been pretty consistently appearing in the storylines for the past few seasons. I mean, we saw her in Season of the Plunder, we saw her in Season of the Seraph, and we've seen her in Season of Defiance. And in all of this, I think it's leading up to this moment where she is going to properly turn on the Witness and is going to sort of bow to Ido.
Seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, in this way of saying like, hey, at very least, I'm going to take House Salvation out of the picture. And, I imagine that there is unfortunately going to be like a heroic death as opposed to a redemption arc for her, which, I imagine there's a bunch of stuff going on there because the Witness is still an incredibly powerful enemy, and betraying it doesn't seem like it's a great idea for one's personal health. But yeah, her story has been moving on that trajectory for a long time. I can't imagine that we're not sitting there and seeing something to do with that. The other really big one for me as well is the Nine. The Nine are a total wild card in all of this. There are some bits and pieces that we have no decent information about. It's clear that there's a subsection of them that are trying to help us, and it's clear that there's a subsection that are trying to be completely independent of us, which is, Nine Law, basically they are dependent upon life in order for them to even exist. They are dark matter given form by us.
I was about to ask. There's supposed to be some kind of like dark matter, which is an energy in the universe in real life that we still don't fully understand, but it seems to be unaffected by gravity and particles, and they're kind of what's the word, like immaterial like beings. But then, yeah, it's a good question. What happened to the nine? Are the nine still? Is it possible we can still? What's the latest? When did we last hear about them? Was it the prophecy? And
I mean, it's been a while, honestly. Trying to think about it, it's probably been, yeah, maybe it is prophecy. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but when it comes to it, like, the actual thing about the nine is always, hey, they're playing around with a lot of scientific concepts here, so if we get anything wrong, call Neil deGrasse Tyson. I promise he will have better answers than us, but
explain what dark matter and dark energy are, which is
exactly
who even knows.
It's, I think that if you see a storyline in the future that revolves around the Awoken, and in particular Seer Ido, you will definitely have something going forward that revolves around the Nine and their story, and anything involving Queen Mara is potentially going to involve the Nine. So
and then, how about the Taken? Who is in control of the Taken? Do we know? Is Xivu in control of the Taken?
The Witness is in direct control of the Taken at this current point in time. Okay. It seems clear that they have been used and directed by Xivu as shock troops, but as far as the original creator of the Taken, and as far as the one who really is pulling all the strings, it's definitely the Witness. They have the ultimate final say of everything. Right. Which makes sense. That's kind of the Witness's MO with any of its servants. It wants to be in this position where it's able to sit there and just, you know, consistently control and get results out of things. You know, it's part of the reason why when Calus was sitting there and giving it a little bit of pushback, it went furious on him and, you know, gave the whole enough moment. Where
some emotion.
Yeah, it's one of the only times we've seen the Witness break its monotonous drawl, and that's kind of important. Yeah, no, mindless servants, that's what the Witness really wants, and Taken are just that.
Do you think the Witness is in some kind of like parallel dimension, because we never actually see them interact with anything? They seem to be, you know, there's always the glass thing. What do you think the glass thing represents, the shattered glass? They always seem to be like just as if they're not really there, as if you're kind of seeing them through a dream. And I've seen lots of theories, there's been lots of speculation about the broken glass, and like we never see the Witness actually do anything physical in the world because they might be trapped in some kind of other dimension. What do you think is the deal there?
Hard to speculate on any of that, but I imagine that if you're looking at the powers the Witness uses, you're looking at something to do with darkness. It's deeply ingrained within emotions and the subconscious in someone's mind. So when you sit there and you actually see Calus after these visions, you know, most of the time it's going to be this moment where Calus has been dreaming and wakes up after the vision, you know, which is really something. Most of the time when you actually sit there and see those things, though, it may just be that the Witness is using things to kind of alter reality a little bit and alter someone's perspective of it at very least. So impossible to tell at this moment in time. There is nothing solid in the lore that tells us anything about that. There's maybe Osmiomancy Gloves gives us an idea, but that's more about the Taken and the Witness's potential ability to pull worlds in and out, and I don't know. Yeah. All sorts of things. We'll see.